Hi there. So I'm going to continue to talk about anxiety. In the last video, we spoke about various exercises and practices that you can adopt that can help you to manage your anxiety in various ways. Today, I want to talk to you specifically about exercise, but in particular, the way that exercise can help with your anxiety in a number of ways. So I think it's fair to say that we all know that exercise is good for us, not just physically, but it's now well recognized, well documented that there are various mental health benefits to exercise as well. Now, I'm not going to focus on that so much. I want to drill down more into anxiety and talk about how exercise can help you specifically with managing your anxiety. So as I've mentioned to you before, anxiety, or one way of defining anxiety, is excess energy. Anxiety is excess physical and mental energy. It's energy that your brain has provided you with that is not required. Now, so far with the techniques we've been looking at, we've spoken about how you can interrupt that energy in the moment. So when you're feeling stressed, when you're feeling anxious, we spoke about ways that you can interrupt that energy. But there's another thing that you can do with energy as well. You have two choices when it comes to energy. You can either interrupt that energy or you can expend that energy. So one of the ways that exercise can be very useful is to expend and channel that energy, particularly if the type of anxiety you experience is what we call somatic anxiety. So if you have more bodily based anxiety, as I've mentioned to you before, your brain is ramping you up. Your nervous system is preparing you to take action. So you get a lot of physiological changes that happen very quickly, but essentially it's about ramping your body up with energy in order for you to defend or protect yourself. So in many ways, your brain is telling you exercise is something that is required in this moment. So one of the most helpful things you can do is exactly what the brain wants you to do in this situation. You can expend that energy. So it can be particularly helpful if you suffer with panic attacks, for example, or if you get these strong bodily sensations, increased heart rate, tension in your muscles, those kind of symptoms. If that's the case, one thing you can do is expend that energy. Now, the best way to do this is to do some form of exercise that is quite vigorous. So going for a brisk walk when you're feeling that way, when you're feeling charged up with energy, isn't really going to cut it. You need to do something that is a little bit more vigorous to be able to burn up that energy. You need a burst of vigorous exercise. So if you have the fitness to be able to do that, if you don't have any injuries, if you're relatively fit, that might give you more options. If you're not that fit, that's okay as well. There are other options available to you as well. So you could, for example, drop into doing burpees, and you can do as many burpees as you can until you get tired. So a burpee is like a press up and then a jump up afterwards. Another option that people go for, clients of mine that I work with, is punching a cushion or a pillow as fast as you can or as hard as you can for about 30 seconds or 40 seconds. The key point is it has to tire you out. Brisk walking or something more moderate, less vigorous is not going to do that. So you need a burst of energy in that moment to be able to tire yourself out, to be able to expend that energy. Now, I recognize it may not always be practical to be able to do that, depending on where you are, of course. If you're in the shopping center, you can't exactly drop to the floor and start doing press-ups or burpees or fast squats or star jumps. You might get some strange looks if you do that. So I realize that you may not be able to do that everywhere. It may not be practical, but it's a very useful way of expending that energy, bringing down that energy so you're then able to manage your emotions and manage the activities of your nervous system more effectively. What I ask my clients to do, in fact, is when they feel anxious, I ask them to rank that anxiety in terms of the amount of energy in their body. So for example, If they feel the anxiety seems to be coming on gradually, maybe they have mental symptoms, negative thoughts, worrying, obsessing, those kind of things. But also maybe there's that physical component as well. They start to feel on edge, they start to feel the urge to move, those kind of sensations. Let's say you find yourself on about a 3 or a 4 on that scale. Now, a 3 or a 4, you can work with that. You can probably interrupt that energy. So in other words, you can relax your body. You can do the kind of things I've spoken about in other videos. You can do the breathing, smooth, regulated, gentle breathing. You can relax your body, and you might find that you may then go down from a 4 to a 2 or even a 1. However, what if that energy ramps up very quickly to 8, 9, or even 10? It's very difficult, isn't it, to calm a storm of that magnitude. So if you find your energy levels have ramped right up to an 8, 9, or 10, then interrupting is probably not the first best option. What you're better off doing instead is doing some form of exercise, expending that energy, something vigorous, something that will tire you out. Normally that can be a spurt of high intensity exercise, as I've mentioned, for 30 or 40 seconds until you feel tired enough. You've used that energy. You've done what the brain wants you to do, and you've brought that down maybe to about a 3 or a 4. And then when it's a 3 or a 4, then you can start doing the interrupting the energy exercises that I've spoken about before. You can relax the body, have a floppy body, you can do the breathing. So you have another option now. Exercise is a really good way of managing the energy. And anxiety, as I've mentioned, is excess energy. It's unrequired energy in that moment. And you have two choices. You can either interrupt that energy or you can expend that energy. So try that and see how you get on. The other thing I want to talk about are the different types of exercise and what might be the best fit for you. So as I said earlier on, we all know exercise is good for you. I think everybody knows that. But finding the best fit exercise for you is the most important thing. There is no best form of exercise. The best form of exercise is the one that you can get yourself to do regularly. So there's the interrupting the energy in the moment, but there are various exercise types and strategies that you can adopt, various different forms of exercise, and doing exercise regularly is a really good way to be able to manage the energy in your nervous system. As I've mentioned to you before, with any form of exercise, a bit like the cold showering, you get that initial going into fight or flight, because your body needs exercise. Your brain provides you with that that energy in order to exercise. So initially you go into sympathetic nervous system state or fight or flight. Your body provides you with energy, you expend that energy, and then afterwards you get this rebound effect where the brain brings you into parasympathetic to recover. So after exercise, you often get that palpable feeling of well-being, endorphins, those kind of happy chemicals that the brain releases. But also after exercise, it's very common to feel calmer as well. I don't know whether you've experienced that, but this is this rebound effect. So after exercise, your body assists you, your brain assists you, bringing your heart rate down, bringing your blood pressure down, relaxing your muscles. So you get that rebound effect following exercise. And as I said, there are many different forms of exercise. You can do the type of exercise that's more likely to take you into parasympathetic sooner. So you can do lighter forms of exercise. Maybe that's a better fit for you. There are things like Tai Chi or Qigong or various forms of yoga that are very much more directly and sooner taking you into that parasympathetic world of rest and recovery. Or maybe something that is higher intensity is a better fit for you. Maybe you want to push yourself a little bit. Maybe you feel that tension in your body and you feel you need more of a release. So maybe you opt for something that is a little bit more intense. And that could be intense cardio of some kind. That could be intense weightlifting of some kind. It could be something with spurts of explosive exercise, even like powerlifting or plyometrics or HIIT training, those kind of things. So there are various options in terms of the type of exercise that you decide to go for, and it's worth considering which ones you feel you might enjoy more, which ones you feel might be the best fit for you, and to consider whether you want to calm yourself sooner and go more into that parasympathetic world sooner, or whether you feel you want to do something that is higher intensity and then you get more of that rebound effect afterwards. So it's useful to consider which type of exercise is going to be the best fit for you. And when you select that, do that as often as you can. Another benefit of exercise, again, similar to cold showering as well, is doing exercise is not always comfortable, is it? So again, like cold showers, it teaches you to be able to tolerate and endure discomfort and even distress as well. The parts of your brain that register physical pain are the same parts of your brain that register emotional pain as well. So if you get more used to being able to tolerate physical discomfort, that then translates over into you being able to tolerate mental discomfort as well. So exercise builds up resilience, not just physically, but mentally as well. So that's another important benefit. Exercise is one of the most helpful habits that you can adopt when it comes to exercise. And there goes a police car or something. Okay, another technique that I want to share with you is a useful visualization that I've used with many of my clients to be able to manage their energy levels in the moment, and it's called the energy check-in. So at any point in your day, I want you to stop what you're doing, close your eyes, tune into your body, and notice where you feel your energy is on a scale of 1 to 10. Do you feel quite restless and ramped up? Do you feel tense? Do you feel quite relaxed? So I want you to gauge the amount of energy in your body at any given moment. Now, that's not necessarily just anxiety. So it may not necessarily be discomfort that you're tuning into, but just in your body, how much energy you feel. It takes a bit of practice to be able to do this, but when you get used to tuning into your body more, you notice that there are waves of energy, there are flows of energy in your body that you can begin to become aware of, you can begin to track and monitor. So you tune into your body, sometimes closing your eyes might help you to do that. And then the next thing you do is determine whereabouts on that scale you feel you are in any given moment, on a scale of 1 to 10. So maybe you discover some energy, and maybe you decide based on the energy that's going around your body. Now that energy may be experienced as motivation. It may not necessarily be anxiety. It may be experienced as excitement as well. So energy is energy, but it can be interpreted in a number of different ways. Some energy can be anxiety and feel stressful, can be stress energy. Other times it might be a restlessness. Other times it might even be excitement. Another term for energy that psychologists use is arousal. So you're tuning into engaging your arousal levels in any given moment. And as I said, let's say you find yourself at a 4, for example, and then you can ask yourself this next question. You can ask yourself whether the energy that you're running at the moment is required for the task that you find yourself doing in that moment. So in other words, you're trying your best to match the energy in your body to the task at hand. And that's particularly helpful when it comes to anxiety, because one of the things that happens with anxiety, as you've probably experienced, is you end up racing around. There's a sense of urgency that doesn't actually need to be there. So you end up moving constantly, busying yourself, and it's not always necessary to do things all the time. And it's certainly not necessary to do things at that pace all the time. So one of the best ways you can stay stuck in anxiety is to keep yourself very busy, moving all the time. And as I'm sure you're aware, it's very difficult to be still and to sit still when you're feeling anxious. Now, it's really helpful to be able to tune into your body in this way, to be able to determine where your energy level is. And if there is a mismatch, then I want you to imagine a dial, a bit like a thermostat. And I want you to imagine this dial in your mind's eye, and this dial is your energy dial. And if you find yourself on a 4, you can imagine turning that energy dial down to, say, a 3 or a 2 if you feel you want to feel calmer and that energy is not required, or if you feel that there is too much energy for the task at hand. You've made that assessment. Actually, I don't need this much energy. I don't need to be racing around like this. It's not necessary. This sense of urgency and impatience doesn't actually need to be there. So stopping and slowing down, being present in the moment, checking in with your energy, and making that adjustment if you need to is a really helpful thing that you can do. Another aspect of exercise as well, this is particularly relevant to people with ADHD actually. A lot of the work that I do is helping people post-diagnosis with ADHD to be able to manage the challenges that this particular condition presents for them. Now, the best type of exercise for somebody with ADHD is the type of exercise that requires more concentration and attention. And this is not only actually for people with ADHD, but if you find that you end up in your head a lot, overthinking, having negative thoughts, then you really want the kind of exercise that forces you to be able to concentrate. So for example, with ADHD, possibly one of the least best fits for somebody with ADHD would be something like jogging or cycling, or just sort of ambling along, doing something that doesn't involve much concentration, because then your brain can still be very busy, you can still be very distracted, you can still zone out, you can still not be in your body at all. It's very helpful when you exercise to be more in your body and not in your head, be more connected to your body. So the type of exercises where you have to concentrate more are particularly useful for overthinkers, but also people with ADHD. And this might be forms of exercise like martial arts, rock climbing is another one as well. If there's a certain degree of potential danger in there as well, it's actually quite a helpful thing, because that very much focuses your attention as well, doesn't it? It focuses your attention. So if by not paying attention you could fall and hurt yourself, you could get punched or kicked, then the stakes are higher, aren't they? So something that forces you to concentrate, engages your mind, engages your body, could be what you're looking for, could be the kind of best fit for you. So those are just some of the benefits of exercise. As I've said, I haven't gone into the mental health benefits in detail, because we all know about those, they're well documented. But exercise is especially helpful to manage your anxiety for the reasons that we discussed today. That's all for today, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Hope you tune in next time.